on behalf of Israel. Let's take a listen to that.
His entire public career criticizing foreign entanglements, nation building, sending American troops to fight abroad, particularly in the Middle East. This plan seems like it could ultimately involve all of those things. Can you explain this reversal and how building and owning Gaza squares with America First foreign policy?
I would reject the premise of your question that this forces the United States to be entangled in conflicts abroad. The president has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. He has also said that the United States is not going to pay for the rebuilding of Gaza. His administration is going to work with our partners in the region to reconstruct this region. And let me just take a step back here, because this is an out-of-the-box idea. That's who President Trump is. That's why the American people elected him. And his goal is lasting peace in the Middle East for all people in the region. And as I said in my opening remarks, we've had the same people pushing the same solutions to this problem for decades. And it's been made very clear to the president that the United States needs to be involved in this rebuilding effort to ensure stability in the region for all people. But that does not mean boots on the ground in Gaza.
So language there is very interesting to me, Ryan. And first of all, it's an out-of-the-box idea. Actually, ethnic cleansing is not that out-of-the-box idea. In fact, the Biden administration was pushing something very similar before they got a lot of pushback from, Egypt and Jordan saying, absolutely not. We are not participating in the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians from the Gaza Strip. It is not an out-of-the-box idea in terms of the Israeli public and Israeli far-right leaders who are very open about wanting to force the immigration of Palestinians out of the Gaza Strip and completely take over and resettle it.
Yeah, but the Madagascar plan, which people can look up.
Exactly, yes. So this is
not a new idea.
Long time, very much in the box.
Yeah.
Horrible, but very much in the box idea for this region, in fact. But the other thing that was noteworthy to me, Ryan, is while she's trying to soften, because obviously the minute you go, we're going to send more U.S. troops to fight and die in the Middle East, there is a instant reaction against that, and one that I think Trump himself understands since he ran on avoiding such things. But she says he has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza. That doesn't mean he's not open to putting boots on the ground in Gaza, which is exactly what he said, but he has not committed to putting boots on the ground in Gaza.
Right, because during his press conference, he was asked that obvious question, and he said, if that's what it takes, then I'd be willing to do that. But yes, to put a fine point on it, in late November of 2007, Blinken pressed Sisi and Egypt to open up the Sinai and said, we'll build a tent city down there. I think if it's out of the box, the difference is him just straight up admitting that they would not come back.
Yeah.
Because the way that it's a great kind of contrast between how Democrats and Republicans approach the issue, where Democrats would support ethnic cleansing while saying that it's not ethnic cleansing and they're actually going to let them return. Whereas Trump is like, no, they're not coming back.
Yeah.
But then the next day, the Republicans are back to the Democratic approach, saying, no, of course they would be able to come.
Of course, this would only be temporary.
Yeah,
I mean, this is so not out of the box that I think people like you and me have been saying from the very beginning of this conflict, that the goal is likely to destroy Gaza, make it thoroughly unlivable, so that then you can say exactly what Steve Witkoff and Trump are saying, which, how could you let these poor people live in this place that is now destroyed, as Bibi Netanyahu, the man who, of course, with our support, destroyed Gaza, is sitting there grinning like a Cheshire cat, delighted at the implication and the fact that this would completely rescue him politically.
Yeah, and it's everybody kind of spent yesterday trying to decide whether or not he's serious.
Yeah, what do you?
Trump had kind of tried to preempt that conversation, if you noticed, where he said, look, I have given this a lot of thought. This is not something I'm saying lightly.
Yeah.
Like he explicitly said that.
Had his prepared statement.
Yeah, prepared statement. And when he said that should have been a clue that that was not the case. It's like, whenever you're saying,
I don't know, because
trust me.
I think it is and it isn't. I mean, some reporting of the behind the scenes, how this came to be, has come out from CNN and the New York Times, so whatever you make of them. And effectively they said, on the one hand, he did not float this through, State Department channels and whatever, but I mean, that's Trump for you. But that he and Kushner have been talking about this for quite some time. And I think Steve Witkoff has been very much on the same page. I mean, both of these guys are developers, right? They're very used to the way their brain works. They see a beautiful coastline and they see dollar signs. And also, as developers, they're also quite comfortable with displacing a number of people in order to achieve those, those building goals that they may have. So, it seems to me that while, he didn't go through the proper channels, this is something that has been percolating in his mind for at least some time. And we had Kushner come out and say that thing about, oh, beautiful waterfront property, blah, blah, blah. And Trump himself had previously said, while he was being asked about whether he thought the ceasefire would continue, he said he wasn't confident. And then he went on this whole thing about, oh, that area is very interesting. It could be very beautiful. It could be very special, et cetera. So in my mind, this is something that he's probably been thinking about for some time.
That I have no doubt. I think that he's probably been thinking about it for decades. Like that, any realtor that sees, because he talks about this being the Riviera of the Middle East.
Yeah.
And the funny thing about that is you've got Riviera has become this brand where Mexico's got its Maya Riviera and Riviera of Asia. Riviera is Mediterranean, so it's on the same sea.
Yeah.
That the actual Riviera is. So you don't even almost need of the Middle East.
Just the
it's
Riviera.
Like Riviera. It's another Riviera in the Mediterranean Sea, and it is absolutely beautiful. When we had Ahmed Khan on the show, he was showing some footage. Abu Bakr Abed was taking some footage of his walk to Gaza City yesterday.
Yeah, and he almost stumbled on a mine.
Right, he stumbled on a mine. But as he says, in the background is the beautiful blue sea. It's this jarring juxtaposition of dystopia and utopia. And for Trump, he's like, well, then let's just build these gigantic Trump Towers here.
Yeah, and let the world's people in, or
and
however he
world
phrased
people.
It. World people.
Yeah.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio was also asked about what Trump had to say. Let's take a listen to his spin on this move.
What President Trump announced yesterday is the offer, the willingness of the United States to become responsible for the reconstruction of that area. And while you are rebuilding, while you're clearing debris, by the way, there are unexploded munitions. There are all kinds of Hamas weaponry still buried underground. For people to be able to live in a place safely, all of that has to be removed. It's an enormous undertaking. And the only thing President Trump has done very generously, in my view, is offer the United States willingness to step in, clear the debris, clean the place up from all the destruction that's on the ground, clean it up of all these unexploded munitions. And in the meantime, the people living there will not be able, the people who call that home will not be able to live there while you have crews coming in and removing debris. It's a unique offer, one that no other country in the world has stepped up and made an offer. But I think it's one people need to think about. Seriously, it was not meant as a hostile move. It was meant as I think, a very generous move, the offer to rebuild and to be in charge of the rebuilding.
Very generous move.
Yeah, it's not meant as a hostile takeover,
Yeah.
but as a generous takeover.
Generous takeover. Just, it's a kinder, gentler ethnic cleansing. That's all. We don't mean any ill will.
It is probably good for Trump that he got an articulate Secretary of State, because he's going to need all of his lexicological skills to do the cleanup effort that's required for, I was going to say 4 years. Who knows how long Rubio lasts as Secretary of State, but
True.
For all the time that he is in that position, it's going to be funny stuff like this, because there's reporting that Rubio learned, unsurprisingly, about this plan watching Trump's press conference.
He learned it the same way all of us learned about it.
Appears to be how Susie Wiles learned it behind him. Appears to be how Netanyahu even learned it, which is the funniest part, because Netanyahu was just in a meeting with him.
Right.
It's like, could have mentioned that part. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe it'll come out that they actually talked about that. It did not appear so. So Rubio learned about it, and then he's stuck. First, he has to kind of go ad hoc and say, like, well, this is, flipping the table, and it's an out-of-the-box idea. Then he has to say, no, it's not. It's not what it sounded like. It's actually just
very
generous
generous.
offer. When he says own, he means just take responsibility for the reconstruction. But also, don't worry, that responsibility does not include one penny of American spending or any Americans.
Very generous move that involves no spending somehow.
Or people.
And it's not hostile at all, even though it requires the forcible displacement of some, now we're being told 1.8 million or 1.7 million Palestinians. And you and Emily pointing out that now, I think this is actually the second time that Trump has mentioned that number of Palestinians remaining in the Gaza Strip, which would indicate that the actual number of dead from this ongoing genocide is somewhere in the ballpark of even potentially like 500,000, which does square with some of the, some of the numbers and the analysis that have been done up to this point. I don't think anyone who watches this program will be